Welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Market. I'm Nathan Hale, your host, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Trent Richardson. How's it going, man?
Once again, we meet in these remarkable times.
They're insane, man. Insane times. It's a volatile world right now going on. Not going to go into politics, but you're living in 2020, so are we. The world's going crazy. Politics is going crazy. WotC's going crazy. They are printing stuff all over. They're deciding, you know what, let's print new reserve list cards. We're going to make these Walking Dead cards. And I'll tell you, man, it's been upheaval. There's been rioting in the streets for lots of reasons.
Yeah. And at least the streets of Reddit and,
the interwebs of magic.
Facebook groups, it's been kind of tiring, to say the least, to see all of the negativity and honestly positivity both. Yeah. I'm like, we've had a lot of comments from some viewers asking us why we're not talking about the Walking Dead secret lair. Ultimately, guys, it's not something we really want to touch because it is so volatile, because there is such a heavy swing one way or the other. We don't really know what's going to happen with playability of these cards. I mean, one of the channels that you and I are both on Discord, actually a Commander channel that's,
pretty sizable.
You're able to host Commander games on. They've straight up banned the cards. So, I mean, there are like 20,000 Commander players on that channel. So, I don't want to touch it. Now, I will say, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I think you agree with me. It is a solid investment in and of itself. You're going to make money on it.
Yeah, loath as I am to admit it, it really is. Because of how polarizing this product is, plus the fact that it's essentially one of the main reasons it's so polarizing is because they're essentially printing reserve list cards right now, new reserve list cards. They're going to be worth money. I literally debated, this is Saturday, we're 2 days before you're going to see this. I spent all week debating, because this is the week it's available, debating whether I was going to pick it up or not. And I've literally gone back and forth. I would wake up one day and go, yep, I'm going to get it. Next day, nope. And I finally left off with, I have enough money packed into original reserve lists and power that I don't want to affect the value of it potentially long term by supporting WotC and creating new, if you will, reserve list cards, mechanically unique black bordered cards. And I really feel if they just printed these silver border, they wouldn't have had this issue. Or if they had printed them as, like if they came out after a set and they were like the Ikoria Godzilla ones where they were not mechanically unique.
Right.
They would have avoided all this.
I completely agree, and they certainly missed the mark with their player base. Ultimately, it shows that they are not in tune with the Commander base of players, which is their largest player base. I understand why they did it. They told us that this was the year of Commander. They told us it was the year of Commander. I've seen these memes of everybody saying, hey, WotC, you're quit printing Commander cards in Standard. You're ruining Standard. That was the point of this year, though. I mean, that was like the whole purpose behind every product that was supposed to come out this year. They told us that. So I don't understand some of the backlash. I definitely get this one. Now, that being said, because I understand it, I did buy one. I only bought one. Solely for it's the only secret lair I've ever purchased, but I felt like I needed to for my portfolio, if you will, just because I know it's a solid investment.
Yeah.
Did I want to buy it on principle? Absolutely not. I wanted to throw it in the trash on principle. But down the road, it's going to be worth some money. So I couldn't miss out. I felt the FOMO. I don't have Power 9 of my own either, so I can't have the same sentiment as you, Hill.
Right. Yeah, aside from all that, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, so I wanted to support it because I love The Walking Dead. But in the end, I couldn't stand behind it. Although I agree with you, it's a solid investment. It really is. Yeah. They can't reprint this. It's reserve list. I mean, they can reprint the cards in a new form with new art, but never again with this art and with those names. So they are essentially reserve list cards, at least in the same form that old Therese Nielsen and Noah Bradley art cards are. They can reprint, but not with those art. Well, they could, but they're not. Sure. But because it's such a hot topic, we had considered. Originally we were thinking about maybe basing this episode off of cards that would go well with Commander decks around that. Then we saw the backlash from a lot of the Commander community. And our own reluctance off of what we thought about this, we realized that as volatile as this is, it may not even be good to invest in cards around those that could be played in Commander, because so many groups may just straight up go, you're playing Negan, you're playing this, that. I got the Negan cut today, by the way. Big fan of The Walking Dead, but still not buying those cards. We realize, we may not see a lot of growth around cards that would go in those decks traditionally, unless they're played heavily in other decks, simply because so many communities have already banned them. So many play groups. Yeah. So we're not talking about that today. We're going to talk about some other cards, though. But before we go into those, we haven't had any new Commander Legends spoilers, so we can't start talking and specking around that. So we're going to be looking at some other cards, but let's take a look at one card in particular I teased last week that we spec'd on a few weeks ago. By the way, Trent, I ended up picking up another 36 of these. So I'm sitting on not as much as I wanted, because I'm not going to lie when I tell you this. I was too slow. I literally had them in my cart, about 200 of them, and then I was still looking at some other singles to pick up to throw in my cart, and when I came back the next day, they were all gone. All 200. And the card I'm talking about is Bala Ged Recovery. I have now about 80 of them. I wanted to have 300 to 500 of them, because that is how strongly I believe this card is a new EDH staple. And just in the last 3 weeks, this card has jumped 200%. So that should give you an idea about how good this card is. I believe it's seen some standard play. I don't know how much, but from what I've seen, there's a little standard play. I don't play standard. I don't play the other formats. I don't care. Commander is where it's going to see gratuitous amounts of play. I have already gone through my own personal decks there's last count was 34. Everyone that had green in it now has Bala Ged. It was the easiest decision I ever had to make. In most cases, I swapped a spell for it. A couple cases where I was a little heavier on lands, I swapped a land for it. It's just a phenomenal card, and the price is already showing that. So those of you who jumped on this, and we talked about it 3 weeks ago, and were able to get your copies for a quarter, kudos, well done. You're not going to find them that cheap anymore. I looked earlier today. The cheapest I found it in bulk was $1 per card.
And it'll be at $1 for a while, but I still think that this has some room to grow. So if you're late to the party, you want to pick you up some, go ahead and get them while they're at $1. It's still worth $1. Yeah, guys. I mean,
think of it like Eternal Witness. Would you pick up Eternal Witness for $1? Yes, you would. This is well worth it. This is going to slot into every one of those same decks. It's just phenomenal. So, on to other news and other cards. Speaking of green, why don't you talk about this first one here, Trent?
Yeah. So we're going to have a little bit of a theme going here for this episode. We're going to, because in light of NBFC lands, there's going to be some sweet choice specs we have for this episode, 4 to be exact. They're based around those NBFC cards.
Also, I want to point out that a lot of these cards we're talking about are, while in some cases they're spec on them, yes, go in on them hard. Some of them, they're just noted here because now's the time where these cards are at their low for you to pick up your play copies. They may not see a big growth for a long time, a lot of growth for a long time, but they've kind of hit that low, and the lowest you're likely going to see it for a very long time. So if you're looking for play, this first one in particular is one of those. If you're looking to get play copies, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, so that first one we're talking about here is Azusa, Lost But Seeking. Everybody knows Azusa. I mean, it's been printed a lot, and that's kind of the reason we're talking about it. Alluding to what Hale just said, it's time to get your play copies, guys. If you hadn't gotten them before because they were too expensive, now's the time. It's played in nearly 14,000 EDH decks, which is a super strong number for a 1/2, 2 and a green human monk.
Wait, that could be in
ability?
Rick's deck. Oh, he's mono white though.
Oh no. Only ability, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. 2 additional lands on each of your turns. Pretty solid. NTG Goldfish has this at a $7.47 market price and an $8.24 mid. Card Kingdom only has 4 in stock of the M21 version, I believe.
Yeah.
For $8.99. Star City Games has for $7.99, plenty in stock. Channel Fireball, 8 in stock at $7.49.
Coming on under the radar there.
Yeah, TCG around the same price. This card, it's commanded a price of over $30 at one point in time. But because it's been reprinted in both M21 and
Masters 25.
Masters 25 and pretty much everything else.
I think that was it, just those two. But that was enough recently to really bring the price down. A core set printing, at rare, not even at mythic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this point, WotC has just completely blown out the reprint equity of the card. So the odds of them reprinting it anytime soon, especially in the next 2 years, is just kind of, I don't see it. No. I don't see it happening.
No.
So the quantity out there, there's still a ton of them out there, and that's why the price is so low. The most recent reprint, no doubt, due to WotC wanting it in standard to accompany cards from Zendikar Rising.
Yeah.
Due to this, I don't suspect another reprint for quite some time. The price did bottom out around $8 mid a couple weeks ago. It's now beginning a little bit of a slow climb. So it does appear like it's back on the move. Do I think it'll ever hit 30 again?
It would take years. It would take years.
It would take years to get back to that point. But do I think it could hit 10 or 12? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. 15,
we might not even have to wait. We might not even have to wait that long, depending on the meta in standard, because standard could give it a shot in the arm, and it's already a solid EDH card. So standard is standard, and I don't know standard. Maybe everyone's screaming at their computers' screens right now. You idiot! It's played in every deck in standard right now. What are you talking about? I don't know.
It's not played in any decks in standard right now, by the way.
Okay. I feel a little better then. But should this suddenly spike interest in standard, we could see this card jump up. But even that aside, I'm still thinking that $10, $12 is not out of the ballpark for this in a year or so, year or two at most. And once it's out of print and people see it out of print for a while, it's gonna climb continually.
Sure. Yeah. So all that being said, it is a risky investment, but it is the time to get them if you want them. I don't think we're ever going to see it lower than this.
No.
And that's where I like to get cards, is on the low. So, we're already starting to say climb back up. So go ahead and get them now if you want them. What else we got here?
Well, Now this one's one I'm kicking myself because I meant to buy into several of these, not as an investment, but just to have for decks because I actually don't own any, and that's Metallic Mimic from Aether Revolt.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 2-drop artifact, a 2/1 shapeshifter artifact creature, and as Metallic Mimic enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type. Metallic Mimic is the chosen creature type in addition to its other types, and each other creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This is a great card for, you can do some fun combos with this, but obviously it's a strong tribal card, and one of the reasons I actually picked this is because of we're seeing the party mechanic and a lot of tribal based around certain things such as clerics, humans, rogues, wizards, warriors, and this is one that can be a lord for any of those, but also can fill that gap if you're in a party deck in Commander and you're trying to get that get an additional one in there. You can make it Commander or whatever, or you can just Commander, whatever creature type you want to make your party happen. Granted, the +1/+1 counter thing isn't going to really help out there except very occasionally, but you have a 2-drop that you can cast so long as you got 2 mana period and you can fix your party. So I think that's a strong addition to the party decks. And also because of how versatile this is in so many other tribal decks, I really see a good trend for this. Let's take a look right now. It's at a goldfish market of $8.68 and a mid of $8.99, so pretty close there. There are 8 in stock at Card Kingdom for $9.99. There's 5 in stock at Star City Games for $5.99, and Channel Fireball, you guessed it, coming in hot at $6.74. That's a good pickup. With TCG bulk low as $8, or as low as $8. Now, at one time, this card saw a high of over $14, and it hit its low of $5 back around War of the Spark. That's when I was thinking of buying them, and I didn't. And I'm kind of kicking myself. Now, it's been climbing steadily ever since.
I've been wanting to pick up copies of this since... I mean, when it came out hot out of the gate. It was run in tons of decks in Standard. And this was around the time I got back into Magic a little. It came out a little after I just got back in. I mean, my first draft was Kaladesh, getting back in. So this came out not too long after that.
Yeah.
And it was just too expensive for me at the time, and I wasn't playing Standard seriously, so it was just kind of a kitchen table situation, and I didn't really care to pay $14 for a card that I was just going to play at my kitchen table.
Wow, how the times changed.
Yeah. I certainly was not willing to buy tons of Aether Revolt crack packs to try and get them either, because that set was poo-poo.
It had a couple really good cards and then a lot of not so good cards. But it did have a few gems.
It had this, Fatal Push, and Walking Ballista, and that is it.
Didn't it have Dramatic Reversal also? Which is a great combo card. I think that was Aether Revolt. I could be wrong, but I think it was Aether Revolt. Another uncommon, but very good one. But what I found interesting about this card, it's only played in a little over 9,000 decks, okay? Which normally is kind of below the radar on that, hey, we should be speccing on this, our personal on the channel. However, tribal decks account for over 70,000 decks on EDH Rec. And this card just seems like an auto-include in I'd say, at least 75% of those. Easily. It's a commander, it's a lord that even if your creatures go away, or if this goes away, they still get the buffs they got from it. It comes in for 2 mana, which means it's going to hit the board often before most of those other creatures. And it's not one of those threats that people just outright go, I got to get rid of it, unless they suspect a combo. When they look at your commander and see you're a tribal deck, they're going to go, okay, you're fine, you're doing tribal stuff, great, have your +1/+1 counters. You can do a lot with that in a tribal deck. especially for 2 mana. So I feel this card is underplayed. But even if you're not looking to invest in this, it's only been printed in Aether Revolt. So I don't suspect a reprint anytime soon. It's possible. I mean, nowadays, the way we've seen in 2020, anything's possible. But
Yeah.
I don't suspect they're going to have a reason to anytime soon because I don't think it's hot enough yet for them to really target it for reprint. Again, I could be wrong. They did reprint Adaptive Automaton in Double Masters, which was the other one that kind of goes in tandem with this, in my opinion.
Right.
I picked the Mimic. I thought it the better of the two. It's arguable.
Sure.
But this next one here is one I really like, but I'm going to let you talk about it here.
I also really like, and man, this is the best card printed in
A while.
a long time. A very, very long time. And the price reflects so.
Yeah.
Typically on this channel, we're picking cards sub 10, $10, that is.
Yeah. That you can
This
hopefully
one
buy
is
in
a little
bulk.
bit of an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called
This
Black
is
Lotus.
a little bit of an exception.
Just kidding.
Yes. So, without further ado, Fierce Guardianship played in over 13,000 commander decks
And
in
this just
2020.
came out 5 months ago? 5 months ago. 6 months ago. It was April. No, it was May. So 5 months ago. This card has been out for 5 months. Already in 13,000 commander decks.
Yeah, which is redonkulous, by the way. Now, the price tag on this bad boy saw a high of around, what was it? We don't have it in the notes here, but I think it was up around like the $56, $60 mark.
I don't know if it hit that high, but I do know it hit at least close to 50.
Okay.
Obviously, you guys are familiar enough with this card, unless you just started playing Magic 2 weeks ago. You know this card, and you know how it's driven the price on these Commander 20 product. You can buy any of them for $30 except for that, or the one that contains this card.
Yeah. So for those of you not looking at the screen, Fierce Guardianship is a blue instant, 2 and a blue. If you control a commander, not your commander, if you control a commander, you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. It is a free negate.
Yep.
Almost every time.
Yep.
And if it's not free, then it costs one more.
Then
Big
negate.
whoop, it's commander. You got 1,000,000 mana, Either way, fantastic. Not as good as Force of Will. But
Okay,
potentially
I
better
think
than
actually
Force
in
of Will.
our format, that's definitely debatable. Same as the debate with
It is debatable.
Pact of Negation. There are costs on both those cards that sometimes you just can't afford to pay because you don't have it. Pay 1 life and exile a blue card. If you don't have a blue card, that's expensive Force of Will or counterspell with Force of Will. Pact of Negation, if you don't have that 5 mana or at least the 2 blue, when it comes around to your next turn, you're time walking yourself or losing the game to counter that spell. That can hurt. So those tend to become I'm comboing off and then I'm going to stop you from stopping me cards. Whereas this goes I'm comboing off, I'm stopping you from stopping me, or you're comboing off and I'm stopping you. Where the other two don't as easily do that without a lot of pain. So I personally think this card is still underpriced. Now, obviously, it only sees play in one format because it can only see play in one format, and that's Commander. And that, of course, is going to keep the price down a little bit. However, as we talk about on this show, Commander drives the market.
Yeah. So let's get to the pricing here.
Yeah.
MTG Goldfish has it at a $31.25 market price and $33.99 mid. Card Kingdom with 8 in stock, $44.99, which is a pretty decent indicator we talk about on this show a lot. TCG or Goldfish mid or market is lower than Card Kingdom and the spread is hefty. That means Card Kingdom, they know what's up. Star City Games, $29.99 out of stock because why wouldn't they be for $30?
Yeah. I guarantee you if they restock, it won't be at $29.99 either.
Yeah. CFB, $39.99, 8 in stock. TCG bulk you can get for as low as $31 shipped for near mint copies, which is
Really
still
good.
really good.
Really good.
So we mentioned, force of will and pact of negation earlier. What's, Swan Song is on the rise. We talked about that in the last episode.
Which he's playing, what, 48,000 decks now?
48,000 decks. And it's taken some time to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 months, and it's a limited release. It's not. It wasn't printed in a main release set. It was printed only in a single Commander precon. So the
in a pandemic year
is,
where they've been lower printings.
Yep.
It's because they're likely inability to reprint this. I'm expecting this card to spike heavy. People, I think
Now,
what's keeping it down is people are suspecting a heavy reprint. I don't know if we're going to see that.
I would hedge that it might. I'd say there's about a 65% chance that we see a reprint in Commander Legends.
Oh, and Commander Legends is definitely a possibility. I'm just saying of the Commander decks. I don't know if we're going to get another run of those because they're behind on everything right now.
They've moved on.
Yeah.
They've certainly moved on. So back to Swan Song, played in over 48,000 decks, or Force of Negation, which also sees played in about 13,000 decks, but costs $12 to $15 more on average.
And in my opinion, is not as good.
It's not as good. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it costs you 5 mana. Now it does.
Well, no,
get rid of anything.
No, Force of Negation. I'm saying Force of Negation, the one from Modern Horizons, costs more.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's played, but it doesn't cost you 5. It costs you 3, or it can be free if it's not your turn.
I thought it cost 5 on your upkeep. It's 3.
No, you're thinking of Pact of Negation, not Force of Negation.
What am I? Oh my God. Okay. Yes.
That's all good.
Sorry.
All these counter spells, they get really similar in the names. Force of Negation, Force of Will, Pact of Negation.
Right. Yeah. My bad.
Nah, it's all good.
But yeah, I mean, we're going to see some strong gains for this card for sure in the very near future. I totally recommend getting it at $30. I'm actually kind of shocked it's at 30. I never suspected it to come down from the cloud of 40, 50, ever. But now that it is, it's got to be buy time, right?
Yeah. I really feel this is why I'm put this on the list of cards to pick up now if you want them, because they're at a low that I don't think is going to hold. I think the only thing that's held this down right now, or brought this down, is the anticipation of a reprint of the Commander 2020 decks, and that's becoming really clear with Commander Legends release date being pushed back for printing issues, of all the shortages we've seen in Jumpstart, the shortages we've seen with Zendikar Rising set boosters and bundles, that they're not going to be able to. They're still behind. There's printing, Secret Layers from 4 months ago still. Don't look for much M20 Commander decks to come out. If there are, it's going to be so small an amount, it's not going to affect any prices. Other than to point out that these will then go up, way up.
Sure.
I'd say if you want it, now is definitely the time to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm. So our next one, to keep in line with what we're going with here with our theme, these next 3 cards will all be on theme. And I'll let you take away this first one here.
So this one is a good old modal DFC. You heard us talking about them, and before I go into this one, I want to point out there's been some word now that there will be modal DFCs in at least the next 2 standard sets, which I find really exciting. The hope I had when I first saw these was that Magic was correcting what I call a game design issue that's existed since the beginning, which is the issue of mana screw, and now the fact that you can design your deck in a way that allows you to turn any source, or not any, but many of the sources of cards in your hand, the spells, into a resource is really powerful. Like you look at cards like Simeon, I'm sorry, I can't think of their names now. It's wow.
What does it do?
It's the ape you can pitch for a red mana, and the elf you can pitch for a green mana.
Curd Ape, or not Curd Ape, but
Simeon Spirit Guide and Elvish Spirit Guide.
Spirit Guide.
You said Curd Ape and it
yep.
triggered. Thank you.
Hey.
So just being able to pitch cards, or you look at Dryad Arbor. These cards that are creature, also a land, or the versatility they give you has been huge in Magic since their onset. Now they put this on a card that you can choose which way it's coming in. Is huge. So I'm looking forward to seeing the new ones that come out. I'm also, I'll be honest, I'm slightly nervous. Like, they were smart on the design on these ones. They really were. I don't think they're going to break anything, but I'm worried they might make a mythic that may not... I'm worried about a mythic land that may be colorless, that may not harm you or may not have a downside, that could be a new Mox, if you will. And the reason I say I'm worried is because I feel that there's a lot of heat right now for stuff getting banned, and that would just... Anyway. I'm gonna go. We don't do all that. We talk finance. So the card we're talking about today in specific, though, is Turn Timber Symbiosis. That's from new one from Zendikar Rising. It is the green mythic. It's 4 and 3 green for a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters the battlefield with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. And then put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this goes 7 deep. It gets your creature. It could be a bomb. It could be a dud. But even if it's a dud, it's going to throw 3 counters on it to make it that much better, that much bigger at least. And the flip side of this, you've got essentially a forest that enters tap unless you pay 3 life. Which we start with 40 life. 3 life's nothing. So if you want to play this like it's just normal forest, you got it. 3 life is nothing. And if your later game, when you would have drawn a forest, instead you draw a Turn Timber Symbiosis, you're just smiling going, I made the right choice putting this in the deck. Now, these mythic ones, in my opinion, so like... We talked about Balaged Recovery earlier, and this was a discussion that came up on one of the threads on the discussion, one of the commander discussion boards. I think it was a Facebook one. Where, what do you count these modal DFCs as? Do you count them as lands? Do you count them as spells? I told, and my response was I count them as about half a land. But if I'm only adding 1 to a deck, I almost always pull a spell. That way, I'm just smoothing out my mana, my land drops. But when you start taking into account the mythics that you could pay 3 life in EDH for to come in untapped, I strongly believe, unless you're going 5 color with these things, and even then, maybe you still do. I don't know. Well, 5 colors a lot when you got 3 pips in all the colors.
Yeah,
so maybe not.
A lot.
But
I'd say it's most is 3.
Yeah. So when you're playing these, I really feel that these mythic ones can just straight up slot for a land. Like straight up. Like I don't think it hurts you to slot them for a land in any of those decks. Because the 3 life you're paying is fairly trivial considering it can be a spell when you really need it to be. You pay 2 life for a shock half the time. Sometimes you pay 3 because you fetched a shock, And this, while not a duel.
I think it also depends on the build of the deck. If you're able to knowingly, you're putting them in there as a land, but knowing that eventually you're going to get it back to play it as a spell. I think at that point, no matter what, common, uncommon, whatever, if it comes into play tapped, I think you're still counting it as a land at that point, if that's what your deck's doing.
To a degree. You want to be careful not to slow yourself down too much, but
sure.
They're so good. They're still just so good. Like, again, at that point, if you're doing that, I'd count them as about half a land. So 2 of them would equal 1 land slot, basically. So I'd pull 1 spell, I'd pull 1 land, I'd add two of them in if they're the ones that come in tapped. But anyway, the value on the Turn Timber Symbiosis. We've been waiting to see the market cool a little bit on this card. So MTG Goldfish has it at $9.94 with a mid of $11.99. Card Kingdom has it $14.99, out of stock. Star City Games $12.99, in stock. And Channel Fireball also at $12.99 with 8 in stock. Now, TCG Bulk has them as low as $10 shipped for near mint copies. Now is the time to move on it. This card, I've been watching it ticking down, down, down ever so slightly. It just hit a flat, and now it's begun its raise back up. It's just starting to tick up now. It had a weekly gain and a daily gains. Last I checked a couple days ago, and it has continued that trend. So now's the time to move on this. I don't expect it to be lower than this anytime soon, barring a banning that could affect a deck that it sees play in or something like that in standard.
Now, a lot of that price is seeing some standard play. It's seeing some modern play. It's seeing some legacy play, which only strengthens the position to get them at $10. Because $10 for
a mythic
land that can also be a spell, or a spell that could be a land, is crazy.
And when this card first came out, it was sitting around $17-$18. Like, originally the pre-orders were way up there, and then it was like number 2 spot, and then it's been trickling down ever since. And it basically, what we're saying is it's found its floor. So if you want to get on this card, now's the time to move on it.
Sure. So the next one we got here, the next two, are actually kind of similar strategies for cards when it comes to playing them. And guys, I'm sorry on this one. You might be a little late to the party. I'll have to check it today because I wrote these notes a few days ago. But Trade Routes from Marcadian Masks, it was reprinted in 8th edition and 9th edition. Basically, it's an enchantment, a blue enchantment for 1 and a blue. First ability is 1 colorless mana. Return target land you control to its owner's hand. Well,
how could you ever abuse that?
I don't know, especially with MDFCs running around these days. I don't know how you could possibly abuse that.
No.
It's basically tap your MDFC, return it to your hand.
Yeah, and then cast it.
Yeah. And then the second ability is pay 1 colorless mana, discard a land card, draw a card. Man. Strong in the days of MDFCs. Super, super strong. So I will tell you guys, because of the new MDFCs, this guy saw a 30% overnight increase just a few days ago. And I've been kind of watching this since the MDFCs came out because I had spec'd into it about a year ago or so. So I was already watching it anyway, but then when I saw the NDFCs, I was like, man, this is going to be sweet. So I've been watching it, and it hasn't really moved at all for a while. But just on Wednesday, I believe, it was like it 30% jump. Crazy. And because there's such limited availability, which I'll get to when we talk about the pricing between the different sites, who knows what this guy can get to. So if you can get them under $4, which on Wednesday you were able to, today maybe not. If you can get them for under $4, it's certainly a great buy. But even at $6, if you're playing NDFCs in your deck and you're playing blue, why not? Yeah,
I use this actually in my Muldrotha deck to a good effect, which I've been adding modal DFCs to that as well because they work so well with Muldrotha.
Yeah. So TCG has it at $6 for the low, and the market price is a little wonky because it did have that super spike. Market price is $3.10. I'm sure that's corrected by now. Card Kingdom only had light play available in only two for $2.79. Star City Games was at $2.49, completely out of stock. And Channel Fireball, $2.39, only one available at excellent condition. They did have some damaged for a little less expensive than that, but we never recommend buying damaged cards.
No. Light
ever.
play or
unless it's a Black Lotus and you're getting a great deal on it, then maybe. Yeah. Even then, I don't know. So yeah, trade routes is just, man, so many possibilities with trade routes. So the next card we have here, which I'll let you go ahead and introduce, but this works with any of the Moonfolk, really.
Yeah.
And I was having a hard time picking which one, and I ended up choosing a rare just for the sake of price, because they're all very, very cheap.
Yeah, and I looked into these as well for much the same reason. And I looked at the one we're talking about today in particular is, let me talk about that first. Uyo Silent Prophet. She's a 4/4 flyer for 4 and 2 blue, Moonfolk Wizard. And you can pay 2 and return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. It's actually a very, very powerful ability. Being able to copy a Wrath of God, just kidding. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. Unless someone's countering it and you want it to go off. This allows you to get landfall triggers recurred, repeatable landfall triggers, plus get back these modal DFCs later in the game when you want them to be spells. Now, originally printed in Champions of Kamigawa, Uyo has seen one other reprinting in Commander 2013. I thought there was one more in an anthology, but I could be wrong about that.
Didn't see one.
TCG has it at 48 cents. I'm not sure if that's mid or market. I think that's market. Channel Fireball, you can pick both. Oh, so it's mid and market's 48. Channel Fireball has them for 35 cents. Star City Games for 49 cents. And Card Kingdom for a quarter. Super cheap for a rare that's actually seen relatively limited printing overall. As we said at the beginning with the Moonfolk, any of the Moonfolk that are letting you bounce back, I'm trying to remember the name, the one I was considering. She's a 2/4 for 4 that lets you pay 1 to return a land to make a 1/1 flyer.
Yeah, I looked at that one too. And the reason why I didn't choose it is because it's always kind of been there, pricing wise. And I didn't know if it was specable just because it's already commanding a pretty decent price as it is. I just didn't know how much it could move.
Right. Now, I do like the fact that this is copy target instant or sorcery spell, because this actually plays with another ability that I think would be really good and another deck it would play well in, which is Calamax.
Yeah.
Who's trying to copy spells. So this could play well in a Calamax, I would think. I haven't actually built a Calamax, but I would think just that ability alone you would want in Calamax. And Calamax has green, right? He's Teamer colors. So he could actually benefit from some of the additional landfalls from Azusa, for example. If you wanted to go with additional landfall triggers and maybe build something fun rather than the typical build on Calamax, maybe you build something that's more like a landfall slash copy effects spell. I don't know, throwing randomness out there. That might be fun because essentially you can copy your own land fetch cards, your cultivates, whatever have you, and just kind of flood your board with mana. Could be fun. I don't know. But any of these Moonfolk that let you return lands, look into those, see which ones you think you might gain benefit from playing in a deck. And I think Uyo is actually pretty strong, especially at that price point right now. Really cheap.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that about wraps up pretty much everything we're going to
Yep.
bring up today. This was a kind of shorter one. We wanted to abbreviate this one a little bit. I know we get long-winded at times. We try to keep it under an hour. We don't always succeed. And I would actually, there's one last thing I'd like to point out. One of our viewers mentioned a card they really like, and I kind of slept on it. I was like, this is a good card. And until someone played it against me in an EDH game a couple months back, and I own several of these, they played it, and the card was Shadow Spear. It's a 1-drop, equips for 1, I believe. And then it's Word Soup, because the only thing I remembered was I think they get +1/+1, and you can pay to remove hexproof off your opponent's and indestructible off your opponent's creatures. Like, really good. +1/+1, cool for 1-drop equipment. And I got swung on by a big creature, and I'm like, okay, I chump, and they're like, okay, well, you die because it's trample. And then I gain all this life, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, lifelink, trample. I slept on this card, man. Like, everything it can do. I totally slept on all the abilities. So I also slept on looking at this card value-wise. And I went back after he mentioned this, and after this card, and I looked at the price. And when it first happened to me months ago, I looked at the card, and it was around $5.50, something like that. And my friend brought up, he's like, I've really have been, and he's mentioned this to me before, like, I really think Shadow Spear, that's a good spec investment. I was like, let me take a look at it. And then I looked, and let me see where it's at right now. So Shadow Spear, since he talked about it, has been jumping up and moved from around that 550 mark back in like May, June when I was looking at it, to now it is over $8, which is pretty good growth. I don't know if it sees standard play. It looks like it does see some standard play. Not a ton, but some standard play. And maybe that's part of what's pushing it, but it really is, I guess it's 2 to equip. I'm looking at the card now. That's a solid include in a lot of decks just for that ability. Trample, lifelink, +1/+1, and the ability to remove hexproof and indestructible from your opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Permanents. Wow, it's not even creatures, it's permanents they control. So they just turn off Avacyn. They just go, you're off. They turn off Shall I. It's a strong include in a lot of decks that can benefit. The decks, I wouldn't necessarily run this in every deck per se, but I would run it in decks that can benefit from swinging with creatures, that want to swing with creatures. Because just adding that trample and that lifelink of that +1/+1 a lot of times might be enough just to be worth including. I'm looking back and I'm going, I need to run this in my Lurrus deck. It's not in there. Why haven't I put it in my Lurrus? He already has lifelink. He doesn't necessarily need the trample, but the +1/+1 and turn off indestructibility and hexproof, I think is worth the include.
Yeah, for sure. So the card we were thinking of earlier is Maloku, the Clouded Mirror. And actually, I was thinking of a different card when I explained to you the reasoning for why I didn't choose it. I was thinking of, I still can't think of the name of it, but it wasn't this one.
Is it Patron? Patron of the Moon?
Yes. That's what I was thinking of. Maloku recently spiked, starting in July. We went from, let's see, March, April, $1.33, $1.40, $1.50. So starting in July, at about $1.50, we went up to about $3 right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's had a double up since July. And it is on the, I do see a little bit of a downtrend. It's a single day downtrend. But maybe it is worth, because this is probably better than Uyo.
Well, just because the one mana for 1 land versus 2 mana for 2 lands. Because the one thing I always liked about, for example, you can pseudo ramp with her, and this is stupid, but if you have something like Training Grounds out, which actually no, it still reduces only to 1, I think. So no, you wouldn't ramp in that way. to be able to
Right.
tap the land, bounce the land, replay the land, tap the land, unless it was something like a temple of the false god or something like that, in which then you could
Sure.
actually ramp with her slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, get more than slightly if you have things like Azusa out, where you can get multiple land drops.
Right.
But I mean, that's magical Christmas land. Still, it's interesting to know.
Yeah, but
she's jumped up.
Maloku is another good spec, I'd say. Again, any of the Moonfolk, grab them up. What do you got to lose? They're not very expensive. Maloku is probably the most expensive of all of them at $3 right now. But what's $3 when you can return a spell that you've been using to pay for your other spells with back to your hand to then cast as a spell?
You know what? It's also in blue. You know, it would be sweet. In response to somebody tapping out, paying that one, returning that force spike spell, and force spiking. Awesome.
Oh man, that would be sweet. Yes, I like it. I dig it. It's a lot of salt, but I like it.
Well, everyone,
Good stuff.
we really hope you've enjoyed this episode. We enjoy bringing you all this content. The time we take, we do spend a lot of time looking into these cards and trying to find not just the obvious choices everyone else out there might be talking about, but the ones that might be getting overlooked. And we appreciate the feedback you guys give us. I know I've gotten some recent feedback saying you'd like to see pricing show up when we're talking about these cards. And I actually left a slot, you'll notice right up here, where I can put that information up in the corner there. Because originally I intended to do that, but the time it takes in editing slows me down, and ultimately we talk about a lot of numbers and a lot of prices. So in the comments below, if you're interested in seeing those prices displayed when we talk about a given card, I can't put all the various prices we talk about, Channel Fireball, Star City, all these various things. What would you like to see? Would you like to see the TCG / Goldfish market price, the mid price? Would you like to know, would you rather see the number of decks it's played in? What would you like to see in that corner when we talk about it? Because I don't have the room or the time to put all the numbers we put up there. But let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll take a look at adding one of those in when we're discussing the card to kind of give you guys a little more visual information in case maybe you're just watching this and can't listen as much and just want to get a general idea. Maybe you're looking to know the best buy price available out there. Let us know.
Maybe I have a light bulb that just came into my head.
Ding.
But maybe in lieu of doing that, if it, because I know editing it takes some time. But what if we have our show notes. We could just put our show notes in the description of the video on YouTube. So if you guys would like to see that, it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's basically a semi-text version of what we're talking about here.
A shorthand script.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we could,
let us know
we could
what
do
it
that.
is the overall you would like to see. Comment below, let us know, and we will we'll see what we can do to accommodate. I can't promise you the moon, but I might be able to draw you a picture of the moon. Hey guys, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate all your feedback, and we'd like to grow this, so be sure to, if you're first time watching, subscribe, like the video, but also share it. But not just with anyone. Well, anyone, but not
your
just
mama,
anyone.
And your daddy, and your sister, and your cousin, and your brother, and your baby daddies, and Barney, Rebel, or Barney the dinosaur, or anybody.
Even Negan.
Until next time, keep commanding the market.
Peace.